Hello ladies, gents, and everyones. It is Thursday, September 2nd, and we're here to talk about this week's space and astronomy news. When looking for potentially habitable exoplanets, it's often easiest to look for Earth analogs. After all, the Earth is the only planet that we know of that is capable of hosting life. But a new paper by a team of astronomers from the University of Cambridge proposes a new type of habitable planet, a so-called Hycean world. Now this Hycean word is a portmanteau of hydrogen and ocean because these worlds have very hydrogen-rich atmospheres and a lot of liquid water oceans on their surface. Now these types of planets can be much larger than Earth-like terrestrial planets, making them much easier to detect and to characterize, which is really important when searching for potentially habitable exoplanets. In addition, they also have much larger habitable zones than Earth-like planets. The habitable zone is the area around a star where liquid water can be maintained on the surface of a planet. And so by having a larger habitable zone, there's kind of a wider range of possibilities for these potentially habitable worlds. The team proposes these Hycean worlds as a potential target for biosignature searches with the upcoming James Webb Space Telescope. Speaking of rocky planets, they can actually sometimes make a very tasty snack for their host stars. This is called planetary engulfment, and we can look for it by searching for kind of telltale terrestrial building blocks like iron and silicon in the atmospheres of stars. A new study published this week in Nature Astronomy looks specifically for planetary engulfment signs in binary stars. Now, because binary stars are expected to form out of the same material, we expect them to have similar compositions. So you can kind of think of this as like a twin study for stars, right? So we're looking for signs of something that wouldn't be due to the imprint of where they were born because they were both born in the same place. From their study of 107 pairs of binary stars, they were able to predict that about 20 to 35% of sun-like stars actually engulf some of their terrestrial planets. Now this hasn't happened in our nice quiet solar system, and so this is actually another way to zero in on potentially habitable systems, because if there is planetary engulfment, then there's probably not a good environment for the development and evolution of life as we know it. After its first sample attempt resulted in nothing but an empty tube, sad, thanks to some crumbling rock on Mars, the Perseverance rover attempted another sample today. Now the rock for this second attempt seems to be harder and less likely to crumble in the way that that first sample did. Now, early indications from the rover's cameras show that the rock was indeed cored. You can see this nice, beautiful hole that the rover made in the rock. And there is some hint that the core actually stayed in the sampling tube. So this is really exciting. And of course, the team is going to be going over the results and confirming whether or not this was a successful sample attempt. But signs are looking good for Perseverance having collected its first core sample on Mars. So you may recall that Sir Richard Branson went to space back in July. It was covered a little bit. A recent article in The New Yorker claims that this flight was actually not as successful as it seemed. So the Virgin Galactic method of getting to space involves a space plane. And while the space plane uses rocket power on the way up, it actually just glides down for a landing. Now, in order for that glide to a landing to be successful, they have to follow a certain trajectory during the launch. So supposedly during the launch on July 11th, there was warning lights that indicated that the pilot was not in the correct trajectory, meaning it could have placed the re-entry at risk. Now obviously the flight did in fact land safely, but this is still an issue. The article alleges that the flight should have properly been aborted after these yellow and red warning lights. In addition, departing from their planned trajectory means that they weren't in the airspace that was reserved for them by the FAA. So the FAA controls the airspace for the safety of everybody, and when there's a space flight, they make sure that civilian aircraft aren't anywhere nearby, especially in the event that something goes wrong, to prevent them from being harmed. So the FAA is actually now investigating this Virgin flight and whether there were airspace violations. Now, Virgin Galactic did confirm that the FAA investigation is ongoing, but they denied the allegations in the article that there was anything unsafe in the flight at any time. But regardless, it's a good reminder that spaceflight, no matter how far we've come, and we've come very, very far, is still a really risky endeavor. In fact, a Virgin Galactic pilot did die during a test flight in 2019, so it's very important to make sure that safety is paramount. Firefly Aerospace is attempting its first orbital launch of its Alpha rocket tonight with a mission called DREAM. Now this is a test flight. The team emphasized that even getting the rocket to space will be what they consider a success. If it actually gets into orbit, that's a nice bonus, and if it actually deploys its payloads, it's an even nicer bonus. Now the payload in this case is only less than a tenth of the full payload of the rocket. There's some small CubeSats and some other non-technical things like photos that are going up into space. But if this test flight is successful, Firefly could be accepting payloads from commercial clients for its second launch as soon as December. So good luck to Firefly and to DREAM tonight. Cosmic rays, despite what the name may suggest, are actually particles. Specifically, they're charged particles that are traveling at incredibly fast speeds. We're talking close to the speed of light. And they were first detected back in 1912, and they have been puzzling astronomers ever since. One big question about cosmic rays is where exactly they originate from, especially the protons. So because they're traveling at such insanely fast speeds, they have to get accelerated up to those speeds somehow, and astronomers aren't totally sure where or how that happens. They think that it might take place in supernova remnants, but this hasn't really been able to be definitively proven. One thing that lends support to this idea of the supernova remnants as particle accelerators is the detection of very, very high energy gamma rays. Now these are photons, not particles. Detected from supernova remnants. So these gamma rays could be emitted by the protons as they're getting accelerated up to these very high speeds, in which case the supernova remnants are indeed a source of proton cosmic rays. However, photons of this energy could also be being produced by electrons. And so astronomers really need to pinpoint the source of the photons before they can really say whether or not the cosmic ray protons are actually getting accelerated in supernova remnants. Well, a new study out of Nagoya University has done just that. For the first time, they quantified the contribution of protons and electrons to these very, very high energy gamma rays that were detected from a supernova remnant. In this case, this one. So they found that it was actually 70% from protons and 30% for electrons. So this is the most definitive evidence to date that supernova remnants are in fact particle accelerators for cosmic ray protons. So this is really cool news and a very awesome study. Well, that's all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you will like, subscribe, share, and of course come back next week. All right, have a good one. Bye!